Buddy in Facebook world. It's the Four Guys Roundtable Show. We are back for, I don't know, whatever the hell we do. We're just back for whatever we'd like to do. How are you guys this evening?
I'm doing Wunderbar.
Wait, what? What language was that?
Wunderbar.
The Wunderbar. I took my own spinny action on that Wunderbar. Patrick, did you get a haircut? I see the hair on the top of your head is a tad bit shorter than it was before.
No.
You're lying.
You got all the hairs cut, not just one.
No, it's I've mastered new technology.
Ooh.
That just makes my hair appear at different lengths when I feel like it.
Is that special lighting you got in the background? Is that what it's doing?
No, it's nothing to do with lighting. It's just an optical illusion. I could make my hair appear much longer right now if I wanted to, but I don't want to. So
I would love to see Pat grow his hair out and see if it gets curly and he could grow a sweet ass fro.
Nope.
Oh, damn.
We should just get a wig for him and make him put it on, and I want to see him with like semi-long hair. That would be spectacular. That's something you should think about, Pat, for Halloween. I'm really
I do not have curly hair.
Yeah, I've known Pat. We've known Pat. Well, I know AJ's known him longer, but I've known Pat for what, 15 years or so now, and I've never seen him with really much longer hair than what it is now. Maybe
you guys have never really seen me that way either.
Well, yeah, but I know why. You just like to shave your head because you're a lazy bastard. So
damn straight.
That's as long where it is right now is as long as it gets, and it still looks like you didn't comb your hair. It naturally parted down the middle, not because of a comb.
Speaking of that, how long have we all known each other? That's I just lose track of time as time goes on.
I met Pat first.
I would have been in 2003.
And then I met Joe.
Jesus Christ, 2003?
2004 is when I met Jeremy, because that's when I started working at Champs. So,
yes, and I was advised by a gentleman that worked there. He's like, "You don't want to hang out with him." I was like, "All right."
Cool, Kevin.
Yeah, he was a big fan of yours.
Oh, wow. Obviously, you didn't listen to him, Jeremy, and it turned out for the better.
Well, I have a tendency not to necessarily listen to everybody I talk to. I take some people's opinions for what it's worth. And that one I kind of took it for what it's worth and said, well, let me get to know this guy. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, when I first met you, you were very...
I'm strong with people. I do.
Yeah, you're a little annoying.
He's an acquired taste.
Who is this dude? Acquired taste. Champ.
That's how the people I work with are always like, sometimes, Matt, customers, they don't know you, so they don't get you. Like, we all know you, like the people I work with, so they're like, we know what to expect. But sometimes customers don't know how to take me, so I rub them the wrong way because you meet them for 15 seconds or a minute, and I always look like I'm pissed off and I'm not smiling, so...
Well, with it, I've learned with any kind of customer service job, you have to stroke the customer's ego a little bit.
Not me.
Yes, and
all of my retail friends have their fake retail version of themselves. There's no fake retail version of Matt. It's you just get what you get with me.
Right, and I've come to this conclusion is that your personality would be fired from a corporate style setting like within 2-3 months because you had and there's nothing wrong with who you are. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying like in a corporate world, like you have to kind of be very cognizant of everything you say, and that's not who you are. Not to say that you're rude or disrespectful in any way, but
you're not offending me. I know exactly what you're saying, Jeremy.
You would offend somebody not even trying because that's just the kind of, that's how your personality is.
You can't always speak your mind to the fullest in that type of position.
Yeah. So corporate, and that's something that I had to learn. Like when I first started with the company that I work with currently, working in retail and working in a corporate office is so fucking different. Like you could, like retail, you can talk, like I shouldn't say you can, but there's like kind of this unspoken kind of brotherhood of retailers. Like you can kind of talk to each other in a very different language and curse and stuff like that. Not near customers, of course, but you know, to each other.
Right.
And you can't really do any of that shit in the corporate world. It's like everything you say could be misinterpreted, misunderstood.
Oh, yeah.
You know, certain words you can't say because you know that's potty
We've got
talk,
Pat smacking
you know.
himself. Meanwhile, so
He's like, "Oh, I've done that before. I smacked myself across the face.
Yeah, because I
No,
remember.
yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was messing around with one of my buddies, and this is when I realized that I was not in retail corporate. You know, I was in corporate, and I was probably there 3 months at this point in time, and one of my buddies used to sit on the other side of the wall from me because we had cubicles. So I stood up on my, you know, I'm like, dude, like it was the end of the day. Phones are dead. Like nobody, like everybody's just standing up and talking by the end of the day. So I was like trying to get his attention, and I flung a rubber band and it hit him in the fucking glasses. It like scared the shit out of him. He's like, "What the fuck, man?" I'm like, "Oh shit." I'm like, okay. I guess I can't act like a child here.
Yeah, it's very few and far between, and you got to make that specific friendship with people in the corporate world to technically get away with stuff like that and joke around. You know,
Well,
for the most part, go ahead.
We've bored Pat already. He's going through his DVDs or CDs and like
porn collection.
Are you about to play us some great cheeky
I
music? Bow, chicka, wow, wow.
I had a tragic moment this week, though.
Uh-oh. Did you
My
do something?
You popped your blow up ball.
my external hard drive ceased to work.
Oh, I did see that.
that is no bueno.
Yeah, especially since that's where I'm basically storing most all of my stuff. So,
Shit, that went the porn collection. Damn it.
I did still have some backup discs here, but they're from a long time ago at this point. So I don't know how much data I've actually lost. The biggest problem is going to be trying to recreate my iTunes library.
So, you know,
I mean, I still have all my CDs and.
What'd you say, Jeremy?
Pat has developed this ability to completely ignore inappropriate comments when he's trying to make a point.
I'm not listening to you right now.
I wasn't the one making the comments.
I was
go for it, Pat.
I was proving what you were saying. That was the joke.
Oh man.
Anyway, the biggest pain in the ass is going to be recreating my iTunes library. It's like I have all my CDs. I can just re-download everything I've re-downloaded from iTunes, but it's like making sure I don't like lose like my playlists and shit like that. It's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass. So
yes, indeed. I actually just started making playlists on Amazon Music since we pay for that instead of trying to buy music all the time. I can create playlists there. Since we pay them $10 a month for that shit.
I do my stuff on Spotify. So
that's where my one daughter does all her stuff. I don't like Spotify. I think it's kind of fucking clunky for a streaming system.
It probably is. I don't have I have 10 playlists. I don't have a ton of shit on there. So
the interface is a little weird. It could be better. I would say that. I use Spotify as well.
Yeah. But just crazy.
I don't know if streaming stuff. I just still like having everything, there. So.
The youngest person of the group likes the old school way.
Well,
I used to be that way all the time too.
It's like streaming's great for certain things, but you don't own anything. They could take it away from you at the drop of a hat. So that's why I'm never going to give up physical media. So.
No, I still have my CD cases of all my CDs. Well, a little scratched. They might like skip a little bit, but I still have all those. And the funny part is, I have a feeling people just like I posted something on Facebook a couple months ago. I was listening to a Michael Jackson cassette tape, and some people like to post it and put some stuff on, made some comments. But I don't think people really realized I was actually playing the cassette tape in the car. Like I was playing a cassette tape in the car. I have a car that has a cassette tape player in it.
Now that's kind of
I had that
odd,
old of a car.
'cause
It
I know what
has a
car
cassette
you
tape
had.
player in it.
Were you driving? You weren't driving your freaking.
That's a Kia.
No, you weren't driving. What the hell were you driving that has a cassette player?
So since my dad has issues with his back and his legs,
Mm-hmm.
especially since he fell in an icy day and fractured his vertebrae in two spots,
Mm-hmm.
he couldn't. His old Mercedes was too low to the ground, so it's hard for him to get in and out of the car. So that car is a 99, so it's what, 22 years old. So it has a cassette tape player that you can't see. A little thing folds down and you put the cassette in, but it has a CD changer in the trunk. But that, it's 22 years old. So, some of the electronics don't work as well as they used to in the car, but it is what it is. So I found some cassette tapes, Michael Jackson that I had, some Guns N' Roses, 2 Live Crew.
Nice.
What else did I have? I think I found a Run DMC tape and a couple other cassette tapes. I have, oh geez. So back in the day, I don't know if any of you guys got these CDs, but I used to go to Seaside Heights a lot. And at the far end of the pier, the boardwalk, there used to be a music store there. They used to sell like burnt CDs all the time. It was from like Hot 97, Hot 98, all like to New York and some of the Philly stations that playing the most up-to-date music. So I used to take those and I used to buy them from there. But I kind of like would record them onto my cassette tapes as well. Because I had an old car that actually had a cassette tape player in it. And then I bought like a CD changer and like hooked it up in my old Plymouth.
Mm-hmm.
So I would play the cassette tapes as well. So I found old mixed cassette tapes in a box when my parents moved out of their house last year. So I was rocking some of those old early late 90s, early 2000s cassette tapes. So like I posted on Facebook and like I don't think people realize I was really listening to a cassette tape in a car.
So for all our younger generation out there,
yeah, cassette tape.
Making mixtapes goes way back to the tape.
Hell yeah.
You made your mixtapes off the radio.
Like, that's right.
Put the
you had to
tape
listen,
on it.
And you had to listen for your song.
Yeah, you listen for your song. You're like, oh shit, it's on. Hit the play.
Boom, record. Stop. Wait for the next cool song. Boom, record.
And you always hated when the DJ would like interrupt it with like the last 10 seconds to go like, damn it.
Like, bro,
stupid DJ, you're screwing up my song.
I found some of those cassette tapes too that I was doing from the radio and stuff like that. Oh, it was great. It was fun listening to those cassette tapes. I'm not gonna lie.
And if you were really cool, you had 2 boom boxes and you play the one boom box next to the other one and record from your friend's tape.
I had a couple friends that did that.
When you have brothers like I did, we had multiple ones, so it was easy.
But you had to be careful. You didn't play it too loud because then it would get distorted on the recorded one and like sound funny.
When I used to do that, my sisters would always be doing something in the background, and their voices would always be picked up. I'd be like, "Shut up! I'm trying to do something."
I'm trying to make great music on my cassette tape right now. Damn it! It was
so
great.
True. So,
Joe, Adam, I was going to send this to you guys earlier. Adam sent me this meme today, and of course, it's our favorite subject, so we don't need to linger on this for too long. But it's funny. It's a picture of Jordan and LeBron, and it says Jordan it says the GOAT, and for LeBron it says the GROAT, greatest recruiter of all time.
Dude, send that to me. I want to see if I can share that out.
It's a goat, like the goat's pissing on the ground too.
That was fucking great.
Send that.
So I will send it to you, Jeremy. I will send it to you.
Yeah, I want to see if I can share that here.
Whenever Adam sends me stuff, it's usually this kind of funny stuff. So I send it just to you, Jeremy.
Okay.
That's gross.
You guys would get it, especially after Jeremy when he texted earlier about Shannon Sharp.
Yes.
Now, what do you know about Shannon Sharp, Paul?
Shannon Sharp's one of my favorite Broncos players of all time, but as far as an analyst, he can eat shit.
Are you trying to make fun of Shannon Sharp? I don't understand what you're doing here, man.
Yeah, he's
I mean, basically what I'm doing right now is very offensive, but I mean, it's just the way it is. You don't understand what he said.
oh man.
Jeremy's having a problem sharing it.
Yeah, I'm trying here. I'm trying.
Do
Oh, come on.
or do not. There is no try.
Shut up. Freaking asshole.
This person covered from the dark side. Okay. Geez. I forgot about the Bad Batch season finale was this Friday. Shit, I haven't watched it yet.
Watching the damn show. I keep forgetting to start watching the damn thing.
Pat, you got to. It's good. There's a lot.
I know I have to. This is the problem I'm finding with living alone is that I find most days I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
There it is.
There we
Watch
go.
Disney Plus.
So,
Oh, I see the goat over here pissing behind LeBron.
so there we go for all our fans. And once again, we're not all LeBron haters. We just hate the fact that this is always a discussion anymore. It's so ridiculous. So many
It's not
times.
that we hate LeBron. It's just that we hate LeBron.
I mean, some of us hate
Yes.
LeBron.
That's funny
Yes,
though.
and
Yeah.
yes.
The GROAT and the GOAT, greatest of all time, greatest recruiter of all time.
I actually
Yes.
figured it was more of a.
That's funny.
Not that we hate LeBron, it's that we hate talking about LeBron constantly.
Well, yeah, it gets annoying.
Same
And I'm
enough.
sure that
It
it was the
more
same
than
way
the same.
when. I'm sure it was the same way when Jordan came onto the scene and started getting all his hype and stuff like that. You know, for people who were like Larry Bird or Magic Johnson fans, they got sick of hearing it because at one point in time, those guys were considered possibly the greatest of all time.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
the only difference is like those guys you're talking about, we got to see Jordan play against those guys. We didn't get to see LeBron play against Jordan, so it's a little bit different because we got to see those guys play against Jordan. And even as a Bird and a Magic fan, I knew Jordan was like something special, and both of those guys also knew that he was something special.
Yeah.
So
It would have been nice. You're right. I think we'd have a lot less debate if we would have had the opportunity to see LeBron play against Jordan or even some of the other great old time players of the game. Like if his career started earlier, you know, just to see it.
We kind of did. I mean, let's see what's Kobe's record against LeBron.
I don't know off the top of my head. I have to look that up.
I actually there was while Jeremy's looking that up, I brought this up. I told Joe about this. There's a younger kid or a younger guy who I'm friends with who he's in college right now. He was actually at my wedding. He's a huge LeBron guy, and I've had debates with him. I think he knows what he's talking about, so I don't think he's just 20 years or 20 something years younger than me. But he did. Like after Westbrook went to the Lakers, he posted something about super teams. And I told him that I think LeBron is the king of the super team, and he got offended when I said that. And he then tried to explain to me, and Joe is completely with me on this one. He tried to tell me that it's only a super team if they win the championship. And I said, no, you can try to build a super team and lose, and it's still a super team. And he was very adamant that it's only a super team if they win. So we got into this big argument then.
Okay, so I don't want to have the super team debate because I actually think we should do a podcast on what a super team is.
Okay, we can do that. You're right.
And go back
Let's
through
save that.
history and look at some of the
Let's
super
save that.
teams. Like, 'cause we can go back.
There is one super team. Okay, one.
92 Olympics, yes, we know.
Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman.
I knew it was going there.
Nerd.
Of course. All right, so I don't know if I'm gonna hope that this is accurate.
The '92 Dream Team is obviously the definition of a super team in terms of like, and obviously it's for a special event, being the Olympics and everything. But yeah, still, that's the super team by which all super teams have.
So LeBron won most of the games against Kobe.
Yeah, out of 22 times that they never met in the postseason. But it looks like Kobe was 16-6 in LeBron's favor.
They never met in the playoffs. Interesting.
Nope, because neither team. The Lakers were never going to the.
Well, no, the Cavs choked. The Cavs choked that one year when they were the number 1 seed when they lost to Orlando. Like the NBA was banking in 2009, they were banking on it being the LeBron versus Kobe, and then the Cavs choked against Orlando in the in the conference finals that year. So then they never got that. Like, and the NBA wanted that 100% that year. So
and of course they break down their stats. Like I said, I don't know how accurate this is. I've never seen this site. I've never been on this site. This was just the first one that popped up. But
no, that one I've been on that one before, Jeremy. That one's pretty good.
Okay, so
it's not quite the same thing, but I mean, the only reason I was making reference to that, them never meeting in the playoffs, is because during the Yankees game today, they were playing the White Sox, and they mentioned that the Yankees and the White Sox have never met in the playoffs in any way, and it said that the White Sox are one of only 4 teams out of the other 29 teams in baseball that the Yankees have never played in the postseason. And I had to sit there and think of that. Wait a second, is that actually right? And I realized, yes, it is. The only teams the Yankees have never played in the playoffs are the Blue Jays, the White Sox, the Rockies, and the Nationals. So
that's a good segue, Pat. Now we can talk about how awesome that game was Thursday. The Field of Dreams thing was pretty cool the other night. So
up to a point.
Well, I mean, obviously the ending wasn't cool for me and you, but the whole concept was pretty cool.
No, I think they definitely did it right. The presentation was great. I mean, I kind of stopped watching after like the first 4 innings because the Yankees starting pitcher was shit again. But the way that they started it with,
I'm coming out of the cornfield
with Kevin Costner, with the music from the movie,
it was awesome.
And then having all the players come out of the cornfield, that was pretty fucking cool.
They were the children of the corn.
And
now you just totally ruined the moment, son bitch.
And if we wouldn't have blown that game, Pat, we would have swept them.
Yeah.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Every freaking game was, nerve-wracking as shit. But yeah,
It was funny to see because as soon as that happened, they put up a meme. New York's the only team to lose in Iowa.
Yes.
you knew that was going to happen. No matter which team was lost, that meme was going up.
Yeah.
That meme was happening no matter who lost that game.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, they've said that they're going to do it again next year, and I think it should definitely be a National League matchup. And my dad even said Cubs Cardinals should probably be the game.
Yeah.
I think
you can't do that every single year. It'll lose the novelty real fast. So
maybe. I think Dave Ross from the Cubs actually kind of almost slipped and made the semi-announcement that they are going to be one of the 2 teams doing it next year. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same spot because I've heard about them doing something for the Sandlot movie.
Yes, I was going to say it'd be cool if they do the Sandlot.
That's a rumor. We'll see if that goes down.
Well, it's just like I don't think they've lost the luster or the experience of the game that they play outside. What is that? Right after New Year's, they play that hockey game outside, the outdoor hockey game,
Winter Classic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's lost its luster, and that's been going on for for a long time now.
Yeah, but they vary, but that also is a variable location.
Right. So, I think they have to vary the location. With the Field of Dreams game, if they're going to do that, like make it a odd remote location where baseball's not normally played, something significant like the Sandlot, because there's so many different baseball movies. Like they could legitimately do it in a lot of different places that don't have baseball towns.
Yeah, I think the thing with hockey in the Winter Classic is that they after the Winter Classic, they kind of created the Stadium Series. And kind of did it in this like right after the Winter Classic and stuff like that, where I think they'll go a little too carried away with it. If you just do the Winter Classic the way it was, I think that was cool. Putting hockey rinks and other types of stadiums for an outdoor event was awesome. Stadium series is so cool to extent, but I think baseball needed that, to be honest with you. Baseball needs something like that because that was the highest rated baseball game, I think they said, on Fox or on network TV since like 2005.
I think what I saw was the highest rated regular season game for Fox in 15, 16 years, something like that. So
yeah.
Well, yeah.
5.2 million viewers.
When I see people posting about the Field of Dreams that I've never even known to actually watch any baseball, that watch that tells you something about, the significance of that and the spectacle of it.
Yeah. I mean, football goes to, London and shit, and basketball does, I don't know, basketball in Mexico or some shit like that, but that could be done better too.
Oh, pip, cheer, yeah, Mike.
Did you see the, I just saw this when I got home. Did you see that? I guess it was during the Bears game where one of the announcers was like, this is the most anticipated debut in Chicago until Friday night when CM Punk debuts on AEW.
Yeah, NFL Network did that. They were doing highlights of the game, and he said, presumably until next Friday when CM Punk shows up for AEW and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, here we go. It's the talk of the town.
Yeah. Are we going to briefly talk about that?
Of course we are. That Friday night has the potential to be like the biggest night in wrestling in the last 5 years at least. So,
yeah.
It also has the potential to be the worst.
It's got to be done right. It just, it's
not
one of those things.
It's going to be a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. Like if he does not appear on that show on Friday night,
it's over.
Why should you believe any of their hype bullshit ever?
No, but that's the thing though. This is not WWE. AEW knows where they stand with people. That building will literally riot if he doesn't show up that night. That place is going to be, everybody's going to be pissed off. That's a WWE stunt. I don't think AEW is in a position to pull the rug out from under people's feet right now. I think they know where they stand, and I can't imagine them doing that. I just can't. So,
but I mean, and they've definitely been teasing it hard enough too. So that's the thing.
There's no way that he's not showing up that night. You don't get that building for that show and call it the first dance and all the shit they're doing. They're not even advertising anything for that night yet. Like going into the Rampage this past week, they had announced what was going to be on there on Tuesday. They have not announced anything except Darby's fighting the best in the world or whatever. That's the only thing they've really and they haven't even officially said that's happening. So they've not teased anything other than it's the first dance and the building it's being held in. They've said nothing about who's fighting or anything. So
they're going to get a shitload of viewers Friday night for that show, though.
And I told Joe that CM Punk is going to break Sting's record for fastest selling shirt in AEW history. So,
yeah,
probably.
And
yeah,
this past Friday was actually a really good, between SmackDown and the Rampage. It was actually a pretty entertaining night of wrestling. Both shows were pretty good. Seeing Roman and Cena verbally banter was pretty entertaining. So I enjoyed both shows Friday night. So
I heard that a lot of what they said though was a lot of smarkish shit.
What way?
I'm following you.
That they were making a lot of insider references and terminology and stuff like that. That they weren't really cutting a real promo.
I didn't. That wasn't my impression. I mean, yeah, Roman was like, Nikki clearly got tired of the missionary position.
Yeah, so how many fucking times has he said the missionary position now?
This is only the third time he's referenced it, but for him to use it in reference to that specific thing made it funny.
Yeah, you're already beating a dead horse. The first time you do it, fine. The second time, by the third time, no. you're kind of already showing me that you run out of material. So
Ooh, material.
I'm just glad Heyman didn't talk. I just wanted it to be between those two. And they both did good. Cena always does his thing.
Cena, this was more about Roman proving that he wasn't where he was 5 years ago. You know what you're getting from Cena. Cena's not going to come out and cut a shitty promo. So, and he still kind of took a dump on Roman. I still think Cena looked stronger coming out of that promo. The whole 1, 2, 3 thing was kind of funny how he kept going back to that. And Cena was like, you ran Dean Ambrose out of WWE. So
yeah, you pulled that one out. I mean, Roman did fine. I think Roman did actually really good. He's that's not his shtick to do something like that. It's not him, and he did enough to cut a promo to do what he needed to do, and that whole segment. He didn't overdo anything. He took his pot shots when he needed to. And that's all I really expected from him. So I thought he did really good in regards to it. And, Cena does what Cena does. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny hearing Roman make fun of him. Oh, you do the same shtick every time you come out. People get bored of the missionary position. And that's why Nikki Bella got bored with you or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. So we're going there again. But no. And then the whole D-bag stuff from Cena and all that stuff. So.
And Cena said, Roman, and your big soap bar looking teeth.
Yeah. And then Roman took a shot at Bailey as well, which I thought was very interesting in that promo.
Why did he take a shot at Bailey?
I was talking about the whole carrying the program, carrying the show for the past year, or whatever the case may be. So he kind of took a shot at her and saying something about her being injured, whatever. But, just being heel self. Overall, it was good. I enjoyed it.
Seems unnecessary, but
yeah, I didn't understand the whole Bailey thing unless something's coming down the road with that. But yeah,
maybe a mixed tag match with him and Cena and Bailey and him and somebody else.
We got to see Nakamura win the IC belt again, and the Baron Corbin stuff was kind of ridiculous, but it was funny at the same time because he's like, I'm poor, I don't have any more money. Can you give me $100,000?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I watched the Cena Romans promo, and I was watching another show, so I kind of went back to that and just flipped back, and that was a commercial because the rest of the show really didn't entertain me or seem too enthusing to me. And then when that show was over, I caught the end where the whole signing, which was already done. That was fine. Just being heel self first to face, but
and then they started, they started Rampage with Kenny and Christian. So they started it off with a match that was probably an A. So
yeah, it was. Yeah. It was a good match. Definitely did good. Rampage was a good show. I enjoyed it.
So I think we should get on to our main topic here.
Oh yeah, we're talking about some linebackers.
Yes,
I don't know
we're talking. What? Speak up, Pat.
I don't know why you think that. You're always acting like you're in charge of this or something.
Well, I don't want to drag one subject out too long. So, I'm moving it on, all right?
Let's be real, guys. We have about 4 hours on Saturday to talk about wrestling. So, coming up.
Yes. I was gonna say Saturday is
the
SummerSlam.
I keep forgetting that it's Saturday.
And I'm gonna go over to I'm gonna come over to Pat's and we're gonna watch it together and be on camera at the same time. I think that's what we should do, Pat. I think I'm gonna come over to your house.
We get to see you guys hold hands too.
I will definitely hold his hand, but it won't be the one that you can see. It's only got one finger.
I want close up you sitting on his lap too. That's what I want. I want to see him giving you a bear hug.
Oh, Lord.
Do they call you a grizzly bear? Joe got that.
Oh, man. I love it.
All right. No, in all seriousness, as our viewers are slowly dropping off as we're talking like this. We're breaking down our favorite linebackers.
We have two Mount Rushmores tonight, technically.
Yeah, essentially two Mount Rushmores. which we are bringing back Mount Rushmore for this episode because we haven't done it in a while, and I think we needed to do it. We kind of all agreed that it's time to bring back the Mount Rushmore for an episode. So we're talking 90s linebackers and 2000s linebackers, like not 2009, like 2010, that's another era. Like we're doing those 2 decades, the 90s and the 2000s, talking our favorite, not the best, because that could go on arguments forever and ever, but we're talking our favorite linebacker from each era. So, I think it's good that we're going to talk about some different linebackers and some of the ones that we enjoyed watching, but then we're going to name our favorite from the 90s, and then we'll jump into the 2000s. And we actually have, as I was going through somebody's list of greatest 50 linebackers of all time, because it was nice. It gave the eras in which they played, the time frames in which they played. I realized that there were some players that played in almost 2 different decades. Like their career was almost 20 years long. I was like, holy crap, that's an enormous amount of time to be playing football, especially at the linebacker position, because those guys take a fucking beating. They get a beating a lot of times.
I did. I also looked at, I probably saw 5 different lists of top 25. And I'm pretty sure that the same guy was number 1 on every list I saw.
Yes, I believe you would be correct with that. If I'm thinking of the same person that you are,
it's your buddy Lawrence Taylor.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, overall list.
Which makes sense. I mean, if we're going to talk linebackers, even though I'm not a Giants fan by any means, you got to give credit where credit is due. And Lawrence Taylor, by definition, is probably the greatest linebacker that's ever played that position, just because, and Darth Pack can go on, a very long diatribe probably about him forever. But he did something that most linebackers didn't do. Like, he really could cover the whole entire freaking field. Like, he could pass rush, he could, stop the run. He was a great edge rusher. He really could do it all. Now, he also did that on drugs, but maybe that's what gave him his extra speed. Say it. I had to take a little tiny shot. Well, I mean, no, that wasn't his whole career.
I very much remember you and Pat arguing.
Yes.
Several podcasts ago about that.
Yes.
Well, yeah, but it wasn't exactly like the drugs he took were performance enhancers.
No, and it wasn't even his whole career. It was only a small portion of his career, so I only joke about it. But, and it's only because in the Billy Madison movie.
No, the Water Boy.
It was the Water Boy. Okay, that he actually. That they take a pot shot at him, but not directly.
He says don't use drugs or whatever. He's telling kids people not to use drugs.
No, it was after he's running a youth camp, and he gets Bobby Boucher to come and participate, and he asks him how he's so good or whatever, and Bobby gives this totally nonsensical answer. And LT goes, which brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack. And all the kids are like, and I think at that time, that's one of the times where LT was actually clean, but of course it didn't last. He's had so many issues. But just real quick, I mean, if you were never old enough to see Lawrence Taylor play, if you just go to YouTube and you type his name, and there's one guy who's got a lot of Giants related videos, but he's got a bunch of LT highlight compilations, which are broken down which are broken down by pass rushing, run defense, pass defense, and you can just see the kind of things that he could do. And you got to remember, he was a guy who was basically the size of a defensive end and everything, but he was, one of the fastest guys on the field, either side of the ball and everything. He was truly one of a kind, and he's really one of the few players that you can say truly revolutionized the entire game.
Yes.
They had to come up with completely new schemes of blocking and pass protection just because of him. And even then it didn't. And even then it didn't work. Even then he still found ways to get around people, and that's just what. And some of those videos demonstrated, they said, he's coming on like a stun, or he just bull rushes the guy. And, he knocked 350-pound offensive linemen on their ass and would just run over them to get to the quarterback. So it was pretty amazing some of the shit that he was able to do.
And he also wrestled at the worst WrestleMania ever.
He was in that
Unfortunately.
WrestleMania 9.
Oh,
Ouch.
nice try, Pat.
Hey,
All right.
I'm criticizing WrestleMania 9 where my guy won the title at the end, remember?
I know. I'm just saying, I still think that the other one was worse. Well, okay, he was in the worst main event at WrestleMania. Let's say I'll go there.
He was in at WrestleMania 8.
Jesus.
I mean, that was Hogan and Sid, so
Right, I'm taking Hogan pot shots here. Come on.
All right, so let's talk some linebackers from the 90s. Now, one of the things that I really had a problem finding was just like an article or something that just referenced like 90s
was
linebackers, because like nobody wants to just put up like, hey, here were the 90, linebackers of the 90s. Here were the top 10 of the 90s. Like those lists were very, very hard to find. So luckily, on the list that I did find that had like the 50 greatest, I got quite a few. And some of these guys I had never actually heard of, and some of them I did. Like Brian Cox, know who he is. I knew him, but I had no idea who Jesse Armstead is, or Mo Lewis, or
Mo Lewis, most definitely Mo Lewis. that guy was in an interview once, and he said most definitely like 45 times in 5 minutes. Most definitely, my name is Mo Lewis.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised you don't remember Jesse Armstead because you played for the Giants. So
yeah, there's just certain guys.
Maybe he blocked that out because he played for the Giants.
Maybe. But then you had Bryce Pop or Paup. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Pop.
Yeah, Bryce Pop. Yeah, he played mostly for the Packers and the Bills.
And then it was the Packers, the Bills, Jaguars, and Vikings. But I know we should all know who Pat Swilling is.
Yes.
Like he was a hell of a linebacker, that's for sure.
Yeah, he was. He had a lot of similarities to LT, just not quite as good.
So,
but still a really good player.
I think maybe Jeremy. I almost think that because we don't know who each other's picking on any of these. Maybe we should start with the Mount Rushmore and then talk about linebackers, so you don't name somebody that one of us is going to pick.
Well, I didn't name any of the real more popular ones.
Okay.
I know I ain't picking any of those guys.
I ain't picking any of those jobbers either, but
and I don't think anybody's picking Sam Mills. Now I know who Sam Mills is too, but
New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, he wasn't like some of these guys. Like I said, Pat Swilling and Sam Mills. Like I know who those two guys are, and I remember them. And they were really good linebackers. I don't know if they belong in like a top 50 though. Like that's.
Well, Sam Mills, just to talk him up for a second, he went to the same college that my parents did. Tiny little Montclair State in New Jersey. They're a Division III school. And so the way that he got into the NFL was that he got in via the USFL. And he played in the USFL, and Jim Mora was his coach. And when Jim Mora became the coach of the Saints, he brought him along with him. Because Sam Mills was not a guy anybody would have expected to make in the NFL because he was terribly undersized. He was only like 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
And like, so the perception was that, well, I was just way too short to be an NFL player and everything. But, he hustled and busted his ass, and he was an inside linebacker. So he was more the tackler type guys than, like the signal callers and like, the pass rushers and everything. But, he's been a Hall of Fame finalist a couple times. He unfortunately, of course, passed away several years ago now because he had cancer. And like they actually after like he left the Saints and he went to the Panthers when the Panthers.
I remember when he played for the Panthers.
And then he became a coach too. They actually built a statue to him outside the Panthers stadium because they felt like he meant that much to the franchise.
That's cool.
Yeah, so he had a distinguished, very distinguished career, and again, he was a guy who shouldn't have made it, So that's what was really cool about him. Like I wouldn't pick him to me, he's more of an '80s player than a '90s player too, in my mind. So I don't think I would pick him for that, but he's definitely a guy who deserves the accolades he's received. So yeah, I wouldn't object to him being like on a list of a bunch of guys.
Yeah. I don't remember what number he was. I
90?
mean, I could easily bring up that list, but I think he was
Oh.
pretty high towards the top of the 50, But
gotcha.
so before we get into our first Mount Rushmore for our favorite 90s linebacker, I just, one of the things I don't think is mentioned enough is, when we talk defense, a lot of guys talk about the defensive linemen. They talk about your defensive backs. But what I don't think a lot of people understand is how important the linebacker position is. Like the linebacker position is, in my personal opinion, is the heart of the defense. Like if you don't have a good linebacker core, at least one good linebacker, your defense is going to struggle a lot because that linebacker really, if they're really good, they can spot like what the play is going to possibly be. Like it's going to be a run or it's going to be a pass. And they help the defensive backs and the front and the defensive line adjust properly. Like I said, now it's got to be a really good, a smart linebacker, just a really, really good linebacker. But they really are the heart of a defense. Like if you look at some of the really great defenses over the years, including the Steelers' steel curtain, that steel curtain was great, but they also had a good linebacker core. Now, I wouldn't say it was the greatest linebacker core, but they had a good linebacker core.
Yeah, they had two Hall of Famers. So
So there you go. They had two Hall of Famers. So you can't have a great defense without at least a great linebacker. They just mean so much, and I think the linebacker position gets overlooked so much because they're not making a lot of times they are not making the fancy play. They're not making an interception.
Not always stats. It's harder to measure the stats for a linebacker sometimes. So because they do a lot of things that there's no statistic to measure.
Right.
So that's why it's a harder position. I think it's less. There's like more measurable statistics for like the DBs and the linemen than there is for linebackers sometimes. So.
Well, yeah, you can't, there's no way to measure the ability of a linebacker to go from sideline to sideline and still make a tackle or be part of a tackle, and that's what some of the great ones do. And, definitely not a Cowboys fan by any means, but the Cowboys, when he's been healthy, and I think he's retiring this year, and all of a sudden his name is slipping my mind. But their one linebacker, I hate this. I hate when I can't remember people's names.
He's a Cowboy. It's okay.
Oh yeah, but I think he even played for Penn State. It was one of Penn State's grads.
Sean Lee.
Yes, thank you, Sean Lee.
He's the one with the concussion issues, right?
Yeah, he's had all kinds of concussions and he's been injury prone for a lot of his career. But he's one of those guys, like when he's healthy, you don't go very far on that team in the defense because he's a coast to coast. He can go sideline to sideline, and he's just one of those kind of linebackers. And that's, I mean, as an Eagles fan, it's great because, he's not there half the time. So their defense suffers because of that, which is great because it makes it easier to score. But, when he's there, it's like, oh shit, Sean Lee's playing like fuck. Like this is going to be a hell of a game for them to do anything.
I mean, the Broncos won a Super Bowl because I'm wearing my Von Miller shirt, and it was the defense mainly that year, not the offense. Peyton Manning struggled most of that year. They won the Super Bowl because of their defense that year. Mm-hmm. So
I think too is great. Great linebackers give opportunities to others. They might not get that sack or whatever, that hurry, but they need that double team to free up somebody else to get the statistics, in regards to that and help the defense out as well. So those are the small things they do.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, as I was going through linebackers and stuff like that, the Eagles are one of the, there's players from teams out there that have multiple players on the top 50. The Eagles had one.
What about the Vikings? My friend Jay said the Vikings suck too for linebackers.
Let's see. From the ones that I have down here,
he told me that they suck too. It's like
there's not a single Viking. Oh nope, I lied. Bryce Popp. He played for the Vikings at his end of his career.
Jay said
that's the tail end of his career when he was
Jay said the Vikings. They've never really had a really great linebacker, so not in our lifetime.
The only one for the Eagles was in the 2000s, and that was Jeremiah Trotter.
The Vikings had great defensive linemen, so yeah.
All right, so let's move on to our Mount Rushmore for favorite 90s linebacker. Now we got to talk about the linebacker position a little
Let's see
bit.
who picks the same person and who doesn't.
Ooh, yeah, this could be interesting. Now here's something, because there's 3 guys that I have on this list that I found and through other searching that their career literally did span both decades. So you, in my personal opinion, you could throw either any one of these 3 guys on either the 90s or your 2000s list, but you can only put them on one. So I'll be interested to see who picks who and which era they put them.
I mean, that's fine. You can use somebody twice in this, like if you need to, like somebody can't pick the same person twice, but you can use like I could pick somebody for the 90s. And then you could pick them for the 2000s.
Right. This person, yeah, you can't pick them twice, but they could be used in either era. So somebody might use them for their 2000 and somebody uses it for the 90s, so we'll see here. Darth Pat,
not happening with this guy.
Darth Pat, I'm going to put you on the chopping block here, and you get to go first.
Drum roll, please.
Okay. Which one are we picking first? 90s?
90s.
Yes,
Your favorite
yes,
90s
sir.
linebacker.
70s, Pat.
Well,
Buckus.
if we're going back to the 70s, they definitely got to go.
We were just talking about linebackers in the 90s, Pat. Which one do you think we're doing?
See, well, wait a minute. Here's the thing. I definitely can't pick LT because
he was 80s.
His
No,
career
sir.
ended in 93, and he missed. I think one of those years he got injured and missed like the second half of the season. So he was past his prime at that point. So, but no, the guy who I would honestly pick as my 90s guy, and this is going to be a little funny because this guy also has a wrestling connection.
Oh, no.
I know who he's
Kevin
going
Green.
with. Yeah, that's what knew it.
Who'd you pick? I didn't hear it.
Kevin Green.
Kevin Green. There was one of 2 guys that I would pick really, and I'll go with Kevin Green over the other guy.
He played a long time too.
Mentioned. Yeah, he played a long time. He played for multiple teams. He was with the Rams. He went to the Steelers, Panthers, 49ers. But yeah, he was kind of like a hybrid guy. Like he was one of those guys that was like an outside linebacker and a defensive end at the same time. But
Yes,
he was great. He was a great pass rusher. He was a guy who had, really high intensity. So, he would out there, he was one of those guys who knew was going to get the rest of the team pumped up, through what he's doing and everything. And never really heard anything bad said about him in terms of like the way that he played or like the way that he conducted himself or anything like that. And again, like I said, he was one of the best pass rushers. He's a guy who made the Hall of Fame. So, he's got, really good credentials and everything. And, let's see here. He was 5-time Pro Bowler. All but one of those times was in the 90s. All Pro first team 3 times, twice was in the 90s. He was Defensive Player of the Year in 1996. He made the 1990s All-Decade team from the NFL. Finished with 160 career sacks. So, he was a really great player. And, of course, unfortunately, he passed away last December at only 58 years old. So, and the other thing about him too, again, just I know we're not talking about wrestling here, but when he went in and he did the wrestling for WCW, again, it was like there was really like nobody that had anything bad to say about him in terms of he didn't treat it like it was a joke. He didn't like disparage the wrestlers. He didn't think he was above.
He was all in.
And he was a guy you could tell actually tried to learn how to wrestle too. So you got to give him credit for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
he was definitely all in with the wrestling stuff. Everyone loved him when he was in WCW.
Yeah, so Kevin Green would be my pick. So
okay, cool. All right, AJ, who you going with?
I don't really have a favorite linebacker in the 90s, so I don't. So actually, I'm going to make Joe chuckle here. I'll take Latimer from the program.
What? Christ. Okay, and how about your real pick?
I'm actually, the person I'm picking for both of them has the same first name. So for this one, I'm taking Derek Thomas.
That's who Joe and I talked about yesterday that you were picking.
that would have been my other consideration.
Knew it was coming.
He played Denver, wreaked havoc against Denver.
Yes, he did.
So I might as well pick somebody from the division that killed Denver every year.
Oh yeah.
So
Derek Thomas was a beast of a linebacker.
He was a beast.
Just
Yeah, that dude was crazily insane good.
My dad has always felt like Derek Thomas was the closest thing to LT that there ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there hasn't.
And he passed away too soon too.
Some would say maybe Ray Lewis, but I don't think so.
No, Ray Lewis is a different type of linebacker.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna. Like I said, I didn't really have a favorite linebacker in the '90s, so I'll pick Derek Thomas because he was really, really good.
Well, yeah, so. and it's tough because like with linebackers, unless your team had a really great one, a lot of times you don't necessarily, unless it was like a superstar linebacker from another team. It's like, who were the linebackers in the night? Yeah.
Or if you like, not so much you, Jeremy, but the other three of us. Sometimes we have a tendency to follow particular guys that are from college as we like in the NFL too. So
yeah. All right, I'm gonna go last. So Theo, who's your pick?
So you're going last.
He's still looking. He's like, I don't know yet.
Jeez, no, I know who I'm picking. No, I'm picking. It's I knew Thomas was going to be picked, so he was my first pick, but I'll go with the other guy who I liked, and that would be Junior Seau.
That was my other pick, so that would have been my other pick. So,
and for those of you out there listening, Junior Seau was one of the people that played both in the 90s era and the 2000s era, like literally almost played 20 years. Now,
yeah, he definitely played a long time.
And now the problem is that Junior Seau should have hung it up, and probably not played as long as he did in the 2000s time frame. And unfortunately his he's no longer with us in that, but he was one of those people that suffered a lot from the concussion problems that we now know about. Like he had a lot of problems with that and played a lot of games and a lot of downs with concussions, and just made him worse and worse and worse because of how hard he played and how hard he hit. Like there was a documentary that I watched about Junior Seau, and oh my God, that guy just practiced the way he played. He practiced the way he played. Like he practiced just as hard as he played, and like just always hurt and never complained, just played,
Nah, he was a true professional in the 90s. I mean, he played his whole career with San Diego in the 90s. He was just he was a top 5 linebacker even his rookie year. He was really good his rookie year. Maybe a top 10 linebacker his rookie year, and the rest of the 90s he was a top 5 guy. He was just really that good. Really that good. He won a bunch of awards and all pro teams and all that stuff for pretty much like all pro 8 of the 9 8 years in the 90s and whatnot. So he was good. He was my pick. He was always professional too. You didn't hear no shit about him.
So
he was.
I also remember the time he dyed his hair gold.
Oh yes.
Well, it was because he went to USC, and one of his teammates was the kicker John Carney, who went to Notre Dame, and I guess they had done a bet about the outcome of the Notre Dame USC game that year, and Notre Dame won. And I think that was that was the Notre Dame USC game that I attended, which would have been 1999. And Notre Dame had a big comeback win and everything. So I guess like the bet was that he had to dye his hair gold one week, and he did. I remember they showed it on ESPN and everything. So it's like, he's a good sport about it too. So.
Yeah, he was a good professional. Nothing bad to say about that guy.
It's just very, very tragic, of course, what happened with him killing himself, and then the discovery of the CTE and everything, and that seemed to be the one that I think really kind of broke the camel's back too, in terms of the public really starting to pay attention, because we had heard the stories and like the ones that were like depicted in that movie with Will Smith playing the doctor who like is kind of credited with discovering it. Like you heard about like the Mike Websters and the Justin Strelziks and the Andre Waters and everything like that. But when it was such a highly prominent player with Seau, I think that really made the fan base really kind of, really take more notice to it. And in turn, then I think that also forced the NFL to really start saying like, holy shit, like one of our signature players here.
Yeah, because before that was like all the older guys having those issues and stuff like that in the 80s and whatnot, and 70s. And
this was somebody who was not that farly removed from the end of his career. So
yeah, he struggled a lot. But one of our viewers, my brother, put in there Mike Singletary. Now, he would be great for the 90s, but he was not a 90s linebacker. He was an 80s linebacker.
I give your brother props for throwing out a Bears linebacker.
Hey,
yeah, boy, I'll give
we
you thumbs up for that.
80s, I love myself some Mike Singletary. That dude was nuts as a linebacker. But
he was crazy, man.
He was great, but his career ended in 1992. So
he touched the 90s, but wasn't a 90s linebacker. But
I definitely think of him as an 80s guy. So,
but hey, if we were doing the 80s, I would definitely. Well, Theo would have picked Mike Singletary, so I wouldn't have been able to.
For sure.
I would have picked Mike Singletary. Hell yeah.
So my pick, for 90s linebacker is going to be Cornelius Bennett. Now,
another Bama guy.
Yes. Now he is a little odd, and the only reason I actually saw him play was because my brother is actually a Bills fan. And at that time, he was playing for the Bills. They were going to the Super Bowl and losing. Sad, but yes. So I got to see a lot of him because of all the playoff games and stuff like that, and they were big news. Pretty much, if you lived in the Northeast, you could probably find the Bills, on either the 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock game if you were watching football. So Cornelius Bennett was really, really good when he played for the Bills. I mean, he racked up some pretty good stats as just a linebacker in general, but just his time with the Buffalo. He spent 9 years at Buffalo, had 52.5 sacks, and racked up 793 combo tackles. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by combo, but I'm guessing that means that it was him and somebody else with tackling somebody. I love how they put the combo tackle in there, and then they put assists and stuff like that. Well, is it a combo tackle or an assist, man? He tripped him with one finger. He hit his foot, and then the other guy tackled him. I guess that's an assist.
Wiped him with his hand, and the other guy got him.
That's a good point, though. It's like, where do you differentiate between the two?
Yeah, but so. One of those hell of a players, played, got a lot of notoriety for the team that he played on, but all in all was a really good linebacker when you look at when you look at the stats. He was a solid linebacker and did a hell of a job. So that's my pick for the 90s.
He's another also in the in the long saga of the Indianapolis or Baltimore Colts not having their shit together, because the Colts had gone through the of course the John Elway saga back in 1983, where he said, "Don't draft me." They drafted him, then they traded him and didn't really get enough back for him. But Cornelius Bennett was the second overall draft pick in 1987 by the Colts. But they couldn't come to a contract agreement, which seems, unheard of. It obviously wouldn't happen today, but back then it was a little more different. So the Colts ended up trading him then in the Eric Dickerson trade. It was a three-way trade.
Yes.
The Colts, the Bills, and the Rams. The Colts got Eric Dickerson from the Rams in that deal, but also part of that deal was Bennett's rights being traded from the Colts to the Bills, and he did obviously sign with the Bills, and that's where he played the bulk of his career, like you said. And that was a pretty significant trade in a lot of ways. Coming down to it, that trade's always probably going to be called the Eric Dickerson trade, but Bennett's impact with the Bills, I think out of everybody who was in that trade, I'm sure Bennett's impact with the Bills was bigger than everybody else. It was definitely a bigger impact than what Dickerson had with the Colts, to be honest. So,
yeah, because Dickerson, as much as I like Dickerson, I want to. I'd have to look at his stats, but I'm pretty sure he was more towards the latter part of his career and really did his major damage with the Rams.
He was in the second half of his career. He still led the NFL in rushing in 1988 in his first full season with the Colts, and he had one other really good season. But then after that, yeah, he started slowing down, and injuries started, taking toll because he didn't play a full season after 1989, really. Well, he kind of sort of did in 1992, but he wasn't the same guy. But yeah, Bennett's impact with the Bills just still had to be higher than Dickerson's with the Colts. So
yeah. Dickerson's last 1,000-yard season was 89, 1,311, and then he played 11 games the second season with the Colts. Well, actually, his third season with the Colts. Yeah, his first season with the Colts, he had 60. He led the league, 1,659 yards. He was over 2,000 yards from scrimmage that year too.
Yeah, that was his first full season with the Colts because the trade was in 87.
Yeah, he had a good second year, and then after that, it was 677, 536, and then he went to the Raiders. Oh boy, good choice there.
Yeah, if
92.
I'm hoping I'm remembering this correctly. I know I saw, was it on Peyton's Place, that he talks with Eric Dickerson, and Eric Dickerson, I think, kind of alluded to the point that he was a Ram, and didn't really kind of allude to the fact that he played for any other team but the Rams, just because of how his career went after he left the Rams. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean,
he was a career with the Rams didn't end all that well, so that was the interesting thing about it.
Yeah, he ended up playing 3 games in 87 before he got traded.
Yeah, it was because of contract disputes, and then the strike was settled, and I guess the Rams felt that they had to make the move.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going to move on to some 2000s linebackers. Now, I don't think I'm going to take anybody's by talking about this one person, but there's one person on this list that, as good as he is, I absolutely cannot stand this dude, and that is Terrell Suggs. I cannot stand Terrell Suggs. He hypes himself up more than a hype man hypes other people up. And it's not to say that he's not a good linebacker, but dude, when he was playing, I was just like, I didn't want to hear about him. I didn't like it. It just got to be too much. Like him talking about himself and other teams and other announcers talking about it. And he played for the Ravens, and I didn't even have to watch him that much because the Eagles never hardly maybe played the Ravens like once or twice, in a regular season game. So it wasn't like I had to see him much, but man, it was like Sports Center, because that's when I was really watching Sports Center a lot. It's like all they had, it was like, if they weren't talking about, if they weren't talking about freaking Ray Lewis, they were talking about Terrell Suggs. I was like, oh my God, shut up about Terrell.
It was one or the other, to be honest with you. It was all there was.
Yeah. But when I look at the 2000s, there are a lot more names on the 2000s list that I know and I've seen play. So it almost it's like you went from the 90s where you had like a linebacker here or there that really stood out, that was a really great linebacker, and then you went to the 2000s where now you got a lot more linebackers coming out, a lot more reputable linebackers, well-known linebackers, and that could be for 2 reasons. One, maybe linebackers just started getting better, or coverage was better, that you got to see more highlights of guys and got to know them better. I want to say it's because linebackers started to evolve even more than what they were, and the utility of them, their use within defensive schemes became more. So you got to learn more, and you got to see more about these guys, and linebackers became more of a highlight in the defensive scheme.
I think the other two was like linebackers in the 90s. Some linebackers played one position in high school and college and then transitioned to a different, linebacker in pros, or they played like the outside most of their college career, and then they go to pros and they were switched, outside and then switched to inside and back to outside, or, depending on the scheme. They were just a little more versatile to be moved around between, the 3 or 4 linebacker spots, depending on which, defensive scheme you're playing in. but they were a lot more versatile in regards to the early 2000s than the 90s. I think you saw a little bit more of that happening at the later part of the 90s when these new guys were coming in. Just because the offenses were evolving, so they had to keep up with that too.
Well, yeah, I think linebackers became more athletic too. And not to say like guys like Derek Thomas and certain guys like Junior Seau and that weren't athletic.
There was only a handful.
Yeah, there was only a handful. I think now when you look at the linebacker position from the 2000s going forward, the linebackers are much more athletic. Like 250 is like maybe 260 is like the max that those guys are, a lot of them, because they've got to be speedy enough to catch a running back coming out of the backfield and being able to go sideline to sideline. They've got to be able to keep up with tight ends who are, not most of the time do not weigh as much as them, and are usually faster a lot of times. So there's just they have to be a more versatile player now than they used to be. So, they're a bigger part of the defensive scheme in general. So let's see who else is on here that I know nobody's going to probably talk about or take. Here's one. I'll throw this name out there because I know AJ is from AJ's favorite team, but he's not going to be picking him. Do you know who I might be mentioning?
You're going to mention somebody from Denver?
Well, yes. Al Wilson.
Oh, yeah. He's from the University of Tennessee.
Yes. Now, I never saw this guy play because, you just don't get the Broncos on the East Coast unless they're playing the Eagles or somebody, But, yeah, he was on that top 50 list, believe it or not. I don't know. Can you enlighten us anybody on Al Wilson, what kind of player he was?
I thought he got hurt a lot, so I don't remember. I think I also had issues. I think he might have been on the Tennessee team that beat Florida State for the national title. So there were some issues floating around there, probably.
So he didn't pay too much mind to that guy then.
Why did my team have to draft him? You fuckers.
I mean, that's what happens every year in the draft. I'm like, please don't draft somebody from the Buckeyes. Please don't draft somebody from the Buckeyes.
Oh, so since we're talking about linebackers, I really get sick of hearing about the Buckeyes and then being called linebacker U. Like, that's really highly annoying.
When did Ohio State start getting called linebacker? That's always been Penn State's moniker.
Oh,
they've been getting called after the past 6 years.
Yeah, and
or
see,
7.
and I
yeah.
And I have to, being a Penn State fan, I hate hearing that because I know how many great linebackers have come out of Penn State over the years. But yeah, I've heard that moniker for Ohio State, and I think that really I can't think of his name. The first time I ever heard it was when the one kid that had you're talking probably 10 years ago now, that he came out of Ohio.
Oh, AJ Hawk.
Yeah. That was the first time I heard it, was AJ Hawk came out of freaking Ohio.
Well, they had Katzenmoyer, but he was a bust in the NFL. And then they had AJ Hawk, and then they had James Laurinaitis, who was decent. So they, as much as I hate them, they have put some linebackers in the NFL. I don't know if they've done enough to justify that moniker, but
no, they haven't. But yeah,
But then you got Penn State, who puts AJ Harrington in the NFL, and I used the wrong initials, didn't I? Arrington.
LeVar Arrington.
LeVar Arrington.
I don't know why. Don't ask me. I've always admitted I've never go. Names are beyond me. Give me a face, I'm fine.
The Roid Rage King.
Yeah, LeVar Arrington. Yeah. Oh my God. So. His career would have been so much better had he not tried to kill people on the field.
Right. Have a right rage. I was at a game where he went after a kicker. After the play was over. I'm like, here we go.
It's awesome.
Mr. Out of Control.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
All right.
Sometimes you got to do that.
He did it twice in college. I believe he got flagged twice for taking out a kicker.
Well, some of those kickers are cocky little fuckers.
Right.
So just how your phone fell is how the kicker felt when he was getting destroyed by the
they're these little soccer players who think that they're all hot shit and stuff.
Well, none of them. Who are you talking about? Pat McAfee?
McAfee.
McAfee.
No, well, first of all, he's a punter.
Yeah.
But no.
I mean,
most kicker's a kicker. Damn it.
Most of the kickers are tiny, except for Sebastian Janikowski.
He was a hefty boy. Let's put it that way.
And he was the kind of guy who looks like he'd stab you if you tried to come after him. So
yes.
Well, with that last name Janikowski, who knows where he's coming from?
He was the best kicker I've ever seen in college. Like he doesn't get enough credit. Because back then, you had to kick the ball off from further away. Pretty much every time he kicked off, it was a touchback. Like, nobody was getting returns again. And like I said, you were kicking from 10 yards further back then. He was a guaranteed touchback. So there was no chance for any kind of kick return against Florida State for 3 years.
Yeah.
And he was lefty.
Yeah. All right. So, do we want to move on to our 2000s picks?
Sure.
All right. I'll go first.
Go first, Jeremy. Yeah, you can go first.
I will. All right. So, let's see. I am going to be a homer here, and I'm going to pick the only Eagle that was on the top 50 of linebackers. And that would this is really probably one of my favorite linebackers to watch play the game, and that was Jeremiah Trotter. Jeremiah Trotter, while his Eagles career was not super long, I mean, he did have quite a few seasons with them, but then he went to the Redskins, and then he went to the Bucks. He was just, for the Eagles, out of all the linebackers that they've had, he was probably the biggest standout as far as like a great linebacker could be. Like, he had all the tools, and the Eagles do what they do best, and it looks like he might be getting a little old, or oops, he wants too much money for his position, so we're going to trade him and get rid of him, and then he comes back to haunt you and kicks your ass when you play against him, especially when you do an interdivision trade, or, however that turned out. I can't remember if it was a trade or if, he just ended up signing with him. They signed, boy, oh boy, my brain. Anyways, but he went to the Redskins and, of course, came back to haunt the Eagles, when they played him. But Jeremiah Trotter was definitely he was a lot of fun to watch. And his name was constantly called when you were watching the Eagles game in the 2000s, or the early 2000s there. So,
Indeed.
So, since we're going backwards and I went first, that means, Joe, you're second.
Here comes a surprise.
Yeah. If he doesn't pick this person, I would be surprised.
What? You want me to pick somebody from my team? I mean, okay, I'll pick Lance Briggs. All right.
Oh my gosh.
Of course I'm going with Brian Urlacher.
How
silly
could you
people.
not?
Jesus God. Hall of Famer? Come on, pass on my Hall of Fame linebacker.
The Urlacher.
28th elected Hall of Famer. Come on now. Yes, my guys are Brian Urlacher. That surprise? No.
Nope.
He also is one of the best linebackers I've ever seen, though. And I don't like the Bears, but Urlacher was respectable, and it was okay to like Urlacher even if you didn't like the Bears. So
Urlacher was he was that guy of the early 2000s who can cover out almost anybody. He covered slot receivers as well, but he was covering wide receivers, slot guys, linebacker, tight ends, running backs. He was able to go side to side very well. Go back, and I think he was the biggest thing with him was coverage. I think he's the best coverage linebacker of the 2000s, to be honest. When you play in, the Tampa 2 that he played in, to become very popular, he mastered the Tampa 2, and he was able to go back in coverage and tip. That's another thing. That's another stat right there. Tip balls. Defensive backs get credit for certain coverages and pass breakups, but tip balls really isn't a pass breakup when it's in that category, and he did a lot of that stuff too. In regards to that, fumbles, interceptions, fumble recoveries, defensive touchdowns. He did a lot. So that's my Brian Urlacher there. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. His resume speaks for himself. So let's go Superman shirt boy. No, I'm okay.
A very interesting story. So, of course, my oldest daughter was telling me this today about when her and her brother used to play the EA Sports or whatever football game that they were playing. She'd always end up being like the Bears. And since she didn't know how to play the game, the easiest position to play when you're playing on defense is the linebacker. So she'd always tell her brother, put me on the Urlacher. So
it's awesome. Put me on the Urlacher. Best choice right there.
So it was just funny.
You could went Braves, but put me on the Urlacher.
But yeah, she was just telling me this, and I'm like, yeah, we're talking about linebackers, and I know who Joe's picking for the 2000s linebacker. Like, it's inevitable. So it's just like really funny to hear her tell like
no other choice. Come on.
But yeah, Lance Briggs was on that list of top 52. So you had two players from the 2000s that were in there.
He doesn't get a lot of credit, unfortunately. He had a lot of good stats. He was up there for top linebackers as well. I think it's just overshadowed by what Urlacher did.
Well, yeah.
They played off each other a lot. They helped each other together immensely. So it's a shame. He doesn't get a lot of credit that he deserves to.
Yep. All right, AJ.
Wait, hold on. Before he goes.
Okay.
Let slowly roll. Wait, where'd it go?
Uh-oh.
Fuck. You hear it? You can't hear this?
Nope.
We can hear
what?
it.
No.
Nope. I heard it for like a second.
Yeah, we could hear a little snippet, but nothing like concrete.
I was cueing the FSU chant because I know who he was picking. Come on, Mike. You can talk my voice, but you can't pick up some damn music.
Squires and ladies, Robin gets another shot. Let's give him the chop.
They stole from Sin.
Oh man, I was trying to do the.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. I feel like if Joe didn't pick Urlacher, the guy I'm going to pick would have been Joe's second choice. So, because Derek Brooks was a beast. So, and I'm pretty sure that he was in the Tampa 2 when they came up with the Tampa 2, wasn't he, Joe?
Yeah.
So, Derek Brooks was a really good linebacker in college, too. Like, he was a beast in college, too. So, he played part of his career was in the 90s. So, he kind of overlapped a little bit. Some of his career was in the 90s.
Actually, it was a lot more of his career than what you probably think was in the 90s. Let me go.
He started in 95.
95 to 2000, and then 2000 to 2008. So, but he won a Super Bowl and Defensive Player of the Year and stuff in the 2000s. So,
yeah, and he was one of those players that when we had to play Tampa Bay in the playoffs, I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, I didn't care about Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp didn't bother me. Warren Sapp was a fat sack of shit. Don't get me wrong, he was a hell of a player.
He was good, but I agree with you. I generally see him as a fat sack of shit too. So,
but I was more worried about. I know I shouldn't talk about people like that. I was more worried about Derek Brooks because he was going to be the it factor. Like Warren Sapp was going to get pressure, but I wasn't so worried about him getting the sacks. I was more worried about Derek Brooks as an Eagles fan playing in the playoffs. And you're right, I shouldn't call him a fat sack of shit. So
I mean, I do that, so it's okay. Brooks was really good. Like I said, Joe was talking about the Tampa 2, and that defense was created with Derek Brooks playing linebacker. So I think Derek Brooks might have been the prelude to he might have been one of those early guys that was like a hybrid.
Yeah.
So he was like I said, he was really good in both. Sometimes with like some of these guys, because they played at smaller schools and stuff, you may not have heard about them in college. Derek, you heard about Derek Brooks in college. So
Every weekend. Definitely every weekend.
So that was an easy pick for me. So I'm actually curious to see who Pat's going to take now.
Yeah. So I'm just checking something. I got it because we were talking about Warren Sapp just slightly because of Tampa Bay, and I gotta look at something because.
And I'm sorry, Pat, if you end up taking him, fuck Ray Lewis. I'm saying that right now. Fuck him.
I don't think he's taking Ray Lewis. I would be very surprised, but
all I can say about Ray Lewis is that he's obviously a great player, and I don't think
yes, I will not take that away from him.
I don't think he's a murderer, but I think he knows who is a murderer. And
okay, he's an accomplice. That's what I've always called him.
Yeah, well, yeah, he covered it up.
Yes.
And hey, that's basically what he was convicted of. Then he was convicted of obstruction of justice. So, you know,
I feel like the NFL vilified him, and they shouldn't have. I feel like they should have maybe looked down on him more than they did. I feel like they almost swept it under the rug with him, and I don't think that they should have done that. I think that's my problem too. He also went to the U. Fuck the U. Also, so.
Yeah, but one of your favorite wrestlers of all time.
I know, but he was irrelevant there. It's not like he mattered. He had a sack in one game. Like he didn't even matter there. So.
Oh, The Rock.
Ray Lewis took a spot.
Yes.
Not my spot.
Not a liver spot.
average size, average speed, average agility, average carpentry skills. You know. What? The rest of that, the other part of that promo.
Yeah. I know what he's talking about.
All right. So who you going with there, Darth Pat?
Well, this is half cheating.
I think I might know who.
Half cheating.
Because his career didn't start until 2005. But I feel like his impact was immediate and was often up because I think in like those 5 years then of what would be the 2000s from 2005 to 2009, I think it just counted up, and he had like 65 sacks over those years. And
he's talking about the guy from Troy.
And he frequently tormented the shit out of my team. And I looked this up. 18 career games against the Giants. He had 46 tackles, the most he had against any team in the league, and 13 and a half sacks, the second most that he had against any team in the league. He had 16 sacks against Jeremy's Eagles. And that is the guy from Troy, DeMarcus Ware.
DeMarcus Ware.
He was actually named, I think, the second team of the all 2000s decade team.
2000s, yeah, he was second team for the 2000s all decade team, which is pretty impressive when he only played half the decade. Here's another interesting stat I found here because I found an old page when it was talking about when he retired. Only Reggie White and Lawrence Taylor averaged more sacks per game than DeMarcus Ware. That's a
Super Bowl in Denver, so.
Yeah. Hey, I remember when he left the Cowboys to go to the Broncos. I think I got down on my hands and knees and started praising the Lord.
Yes, I really disliked DeMarcus Ware because he was a pain in the ass on Dallas.
Yeah. It was just like, I'm like, oh my God, thank God he's not going to torment the Giants any longer. And then I think the Broncos' first game maybe that year was against the Giants, and he sacked Eli again once or twice. And I'm like, well, some things don't change.
Well, see, that's the one thing about the Cowboys. The Cowboys always draft or find really good defensive players.
They do.
At least their front four and their linebackers. I can't say the same necessarily about their defensive backs.
No, they get those guys in free agency.
Yes.
They pick them up on the corner around the street. you can play football, right?
Yeah, so it's he'll be eligible for the Hall of Fame for the first time. This coming season, like when they start doing like the voting process, he'll be like a first time eligible.
Oh, yeah.
And when I've seen some people like kind of trying to project next year's Hall of Fame class, I've only seen him mentioned like once or twice. Like he gets mentioned. It's like, well, he'll be one of the people who'll be first time eligible, but it doesn't seem like a lot of people think he'll get in first ballot. And it is harder to get in first ballot as a football Hall of Fame player, it seems like, than as a baseball Hall of Fame player. But I'll be the first person to vouch for him as like he should definitely be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And it's be kind of, I mean, it kind of depends on who's on the finalists and all that. But it's like, to me, it's like if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I'm not really sure who is. He was definitely one of the most destructive forces, on defense in the league for a decade. So,
yeah,
he was worth it, completely. And yeah, like I said, when you know that, when you're going up and playing opponent, you're going to be playing, your team's playing an opponent, and you know that guy's going to torment your team. It doesn't matter what your team does. I mean, that says something about that guy. And like, I always knew that with DeMarcus, where I knew it wouldn't matter what the Giants were going to do, they were just going to not be able to stop him. And he was just going to kick their ass for the entire game. It was just hopeful that they could overcome it enough that they would still win the game, even if he sacked Eli like 3 times. So,
yeah, he's one of those players. So when we look at some of the other line, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to say, I was going to talk about somebody else that I'm glad nobody picked, because I always thought Zach Thomas was overrated, so I didn't really buy into him. I saw a list where they had him ahead of Derek Brooks, and I was like laughing at those lists because I always thought Zach Thomas was overrated.
I thought he was good, but yeah, I didn't think he was as good as other guys. And he was also one of those guys who was like, he was the inside linebacker signal caller, like Mike Singletary types. But I'm like, well, he's not as good as Mike Singletary. And yeah, I never thought he was as good as like Derek Brooks either. So that's also why, like, there's that funny little part, since we've already mentioned it once in this podcast, in the Water Boy, like in the bowl game, they show Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson, sitting next to each other, and Johnson was still coaching the Dolphins, and obviously Cowher was still coaching the Steelers. And they're like, I really wanted to see that Water Boy. And like, Cowher's like, he reminds me of Greg Lloyd, and Johnson's like, nah, Zach Thomas. And they're like, whatever, the way that Bobby Boucher played, it was definitely more Greg Lloyd-ish than Zach Thomas-ish, because in the Water Boy, he was constantly hitting, sacking the quarterback. So Zach Thomas wasn't a pass rushing linebacker. So
no, he definitely was not, because he only recorded 20.5 sacks over his career.
Yeah, he was the defensive quarterback type.
Yeah, he was more
like,
he was
like Singletary, like Derek Brooks, but he wasn't as dynamic. I just never felt he was as dynamic a playmaker as some of those guys.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't say he was bad. I just said I thought he was overrated.
Yeah, and Derek Brooks, surprisingly, I didn't realize. I thought he would have had more, but he only had 13.5 sacks too. Like, that's very surprising that he didn't have more, because I just remember the havoc that he could wreak on a defense.
Well, yeah, because again, he was more of a down the field linebacker.
Yeah, but so. I mean, I liked Zach Thomas. I mean, he was a Dolphin, so I didn't see a lot of him play, except for like highlights from like, Sports Center and shit like that. But I mean, there was Joey Porter is a hell of a linebacker. I mean, that dude was crazy.
Yes, he was.
Now here's one I didn't know. Like, I don't recognize this name, Julian Peterson. I recognize the name, but he was a 49er, a Seahawk, and a Lion.
Yeah, I don't.
But
I still don't remember him.
Here's one that I was not surprised that nobody picked: Teddy Bruschi. But there's a guy that, if you're a Patriots fan, you loved him. If you weren't a Patriots fan, you were like, "Who the hell's Teddy Bruschi?" Because he wasn't like as good of a linebacker as he was, he's not like a standout linebacker. You knew who he was because he played for the Patriots, but that was really about all you knew. Like, he was not like one of those like stat linebackers or anything like that. He was a linebacker for the Patriots.
Julian Peterson was a guy from Michigan State who, he played for the 49ers, Seahawks, and Lions. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. But his career was only 11 seasons from 2000 to 2010, and I don't think his teams had a whole lot of success. So that might be one reason why he always kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah. Keith Bullock, I recognize that name for the Titans.
He was with the Titans, and he finished his career with the Giants, I think.
Yeah. But here's one from the 90s that I like this guy, Chris Spielman. Like, I liked Chris Spielman.
Oh, yeah.
See, I always thought I would always think of Spielman as being more of an '80s guy, but as I look at his his playing career, he actually played more in the '90s than in the '80s. So.
Suck guy.
Well, and the interesting, like, unless you like myself, I really like Barry Sanders, so I purposely watched. Like, if a Lions game came on, I would purposely watch the Lions because I wanted to watch Barry Sanders play.
Yeah, I saw enough of him. Get over it.
Hey, I'm not saying he's better than anybody. I just like to watch him play. I know you didn't like
my
it 'cause
defense
he
is
pissed
saw.
off. Yeah,
I saw enough of him on defense.
Yeah, the Bears are like, okay, good, he's retired. Not by accident, he retired. Thank God. But no, that's where I got to see Chris Spielman play. Because not that I got to see a lot of Lions games, but watching.
He was also he'd been doing color commentary for Fox for the last several years, but I don't know if he still is because it says that he was hired as a special assistant to the Lions CEO at the end of last year. So I don't know if that means he's going to keep broadcasting. Probably not, because I don't see how.
I don't think he does.
Yeah, but I seem to remember that I thought he was decent as an analyst. So
yeah, I can't say I necessarily remember. I mean, I know I've heard him on games, but I couldn't necessarily say yes, he was good. No, he was not. Probably because I just don't remember how good it was or not. So it evidently didn't leave a lasting impression on his abilities.
Well, he also wasn't one of the. He wasn't on like one of I think what you would call it like the top.
No, he wasn't.
He was one of the middle of the pack.
I want to say I got to hear a lot of him last year because the Eagles never got the A team unless it was a Monday night game or a Sunday night game. They always got the B team and the C team announcers, and some of the guys I was like, who the hell are these guys announcing this game? I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Who is Bob Schumacher?
Man.
So yeah, we got to hear a lot of just a lot of B teams, and I think a C team here or there for these different networks, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. Like I remember
it's tough sometimes.
Not to say that the A teams don't mess up names, but some of these guys were saying the wrong name and didn't even realize it. I'm like, you know what game you're calling right now? Are you sure you got the right?
They're butchering names.
They were the Jim Ross of NFL.
Oh yeah.
That's a big 2x4.
AJ.
Here on WWE Dynamite.
Oh, did he say that once?
He did.
Yes, he did.
Dynamite, we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be.
He also called Kenny Omega the WWE champion.
Yep.
Nice.
And
instantly Ross was fired.
No, he's not. They actually have stuck up for him, and I'm just like, fucking fire, get him off fucking television. You can only make so many mistakes before you start looking like idiots for continuing to keep somebody like that on television. You give them strike 1, 2, 3, and 4, and after that, okay, we're starting to get into problems here. Strike 5, 6.
Pretty much. Hey AJ, you can tell Jay that next year Chad Greenway is eligible for the Hall of Fame. He's a linebacker too.
He was decent.
There's a Vikings linebacker.
So
yeah, he's not Hall of Fame worthy though.
Joe
No.
and I were talking a little earlier, and it was, and I was telling him about this podcast that happened to be on the TV because I have internet TV, so it like randomly plays these weird shows and stuff like that. And the one channel that was on was Fubu TV, and I was listening to Get Your Popcorn podcast, which has got T.O. and Hatcham, which I think that's the guy's last name, or Hatchet or something like that. Once again, don't ask me about names. I just knew T.O. The other guy, I had no clue who he was. But they were interviewing.
Yeah, you already lost me at T.O. I'm already worried. So
I'm really going to lose you now because
that's actually not the bad part of it.
Yeah, they were interviewing Sterling Sharp.
That's the bad part of it.
Shannon Sharp.
Okay.
Shannon Sharp, not Sterling Sharp. Shannon Sharp. He's a whiz. Sterling Sharp was the other guy. He played too, but wrong purpose. So they're interviewing Shannon Sharp. Now, I'm not going to go into what they were talking about with LeBron because that's a dead horse and I don't need to beat it anymore.
Yes.
But they were talking about Hall of Fame because T.O. didn't get into, I think, his third time on the ballot. And Shannon Sharp didn't get into his third time on the ballot. So they were talking about that. And they're like, well, if they don't like you, they don't put you in on the first time. I didn't look any of this up, but I would love, like, I know Darth Pat, you're really quick with some of those lookups and stuff, but I don't think in most guys' case, unless they are a stud, like an absolute stud of a player in their position, make it in on their first ballot. Like, I want to say there is not a ton of first ballot NFL Hall of Famers out. Like, I think a lot of guys at least go to their second.
I will say, as much as I don't, Sharp at the time, he was like, the tight end position changed because of him. So he probably could have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. He probably should have been.
Right. So I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm not disagreeing with Shannon Sharp being a first ballot, and I'm not disagreeing with T.O. being a first ballot. And I dislike T.O. with a passion. Like,
actually didn't. I was okay with T.O. not being, because to me T.O.'s not Randy Moss or Jerry Rice. He's the next tier. So to me, Shannon Sharp is in that tier with Tony Gonzalez and Gronk. Yeah. He's in that tier with those guys. He like kind of paved the way for those guys. Yeah. So
right, and I completely agree with that because I remember watching Shannon Sharp, and Shannon Sharp was a hell of a tight end,
He was a dick. He was a dick even then. I mean, as a Broncos fan, he was entertainment. But I'm sure that the New England fans didn't like him when he was calling the phone that night. He's like, we need to get the National Guard here and whatever to stop this beatdown.
Well, yeah, and I think that was like the point that he was trying to make was like, unless the voting people like you, you're not going to get in first ballot.
And I don't necessarily think the voting people liked Randy Moss though either.
Yeah,
so
see, that's the thing. Like, I don't think it necessarily always has to do with that. I think sometimes, and like I'd have to see who's on both T.O.'s and Shannon Sharp's ballots, like when they were first initially eligible, to say, okay, well maybe these guys did deserve it over you based on, who was still eligible and who needed to go, who deserved to go in and who was on the voting. Like, you just can't make a general, like, and I know these guys played, so I'm not trying to say they're right or wrong, but you can't just make a general statement and say the media, if the people that vote don't like you, you're not going to get in on your first ballot, because that's not necessarily true. Could it be true to an extent? Possibly, probably is, because T.O. rubbed people
had
completely
annex.
the wrong
That's
way.
why he's bitching about it.
Yeah. T.O. definitely rubbed people the wrong way, especially the people that were going to be voting for him to be in the Hall of Fame, because my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it's the Associated Press that votes on that, like the press and stuff like that.
Yes.
Or they have a say. They're not like the all vote, but I think they have a portion of the vote or something like that.
I think it's a couple different outlets that have the ability that have a vote. I will look that up.
I'm surprised Pat doesn't know the answer to that. So
about what?
He was talking about who votes for the NFL Hall of Fame. Who's the voting body for that?
It's a bunch of writers and everything, but it's not quite the same as um the baseball Hall of Fame, where you have hundreds of writers who are submitting ballots, and anybody who gets 75% of the ballots is inducted. With the Football Hall of Fame, it's a much smaller. Um,
It's 48 members.
yeah, there we go. I was gonna say 60, but that didn't sound right. And it's mostly supposed to be media members, but basically, like, these guys all get together in a room, and like on like the voting day, and they have like the list of 15 finalists, and like they go through like each finalist, and like guys who like talk them up, or well, I don't know if they talk anybody down, but they talk up the candidates and everything, and then they basically vote, and they pair it to 5 to 10, and then to 5, and then though they always usually induct those 5. I think I was just counting it here in terms of like guys who have been inducted on their first ballot. It's only been about 80 some people, and a lot of them have been guys who are more recent. So it's a little hard to judge sometimes of that. There is a thing with the Football Hall of Fame, much like there is with the Baseball Hall of Fame, that being inducted on like your first ballot means more than just being inducted, which is a little silly to me. Now, the process for the Football Hall of Fame does make it a little more, hard to get in, because the Baseball Hall of Fame, again, like I said, all you got to do is be named on 75% of the ballots, and they can vote for up to 10 people. Only at most 5 guys get in every year from the Football Hall of Fame, from the list of 15 finalists. There's other committees where they induct other people, like the senior and the contributor and that thing. But so yeah, there's definitely, though, bias where some guys just naturally don't want to vote for some guys. Shannon Sharp and Randy Moss would be guys who, I would definitely say could have suffered that, because there's just going to be guys where it's going to be like, oh, I didn't want to vote for him because blah, blah, blah. Moss got in his first ballot because, I think the numbers were there and everything. T.O. did not get in his first ballot. I think it took him 3 tries. So, because his last NFL season was 2010, he was inducted 2018. So, Shannon Sharp.
3. Jeremy said it. He was third ballot.
Yep.
Yes, that looks like right. So, sometimes it does matter, but like Jeremy also said, sometimes it does also matter who else is on the ballot, and it's also very difficult for multiple guys from the same position to get in.
Right.
In
they try and select variety.
They do.
So let me just.
Sometimes variety just needs to be put the guys in.
Yeah.
In regards to it.
So I found the 2009, because that would have been his first year eligible, because he got in 2011. So these were the guys that were selected. You had Randall McDaniel,
yeah.
Yeah. Bruce Smith, Derek Thomas, Rod Woodson, and Ralph Wilson Sr., who was an owner.
Mm-hmm.
So you had 3 defensive guys, and Randall McDaniel, I'm not sure what he was.
He was a guard.
He was a guard. So,
yep.
And Bobby Hayes was another one selected.
He was the senior committee. So that's
senior committee.
That's separate. You can't really compare that.
So
yeah, they're voted separately in regards to that one.
So the list that was on. So here was the list of players, and I'm going to share this out just so everybody can see this.
So this has to be a list of what wide receivers are on this list that did not make the Hall of Fame yet, too.
Right. So there's quite a few well-known players on here. So you had Chris Carter, Dermontti Dawson, Richard Dent, Russ Grimm, Cortez Kennedy, Bob Kuchenberg, John Randall, Andre Reed. There's Shannon Sharp. So, I mean, there was a lot of good players. And not to say Shannon Sharp doesn't stand out, but, I mean, Chris Carter was a fucking dominant wide receiver when he played. He was a hell of a fucking receiver. Andre Reed. I mean...
Yeah.
So it's not like he was going against crummy competition as far as, like, who was eligible that year. I mean, and come on, you have Bruce Smith, Derek Thomas, and Rod Woodson.
Right, he's not going to get in over those three. So the only one you could make an argument for would be Randall McDaniel. So he's not getting in over those other three. So
yeah, so I mean, it's just one of those things. And like, I'm sure if we looked at 2010 ballot.
Where's T.O. on that list? Where's his stats?
T.O. wasn't eligible, I think, until
2015.
Oh, it's right later.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Shannon Sharp. He had 10,060 yards receiving. Yeah, 62 touchdowns. Blah blah blah. I mean,
one other quick thing about that 2009 ballot. All the 15 finalists on that ballot
are in now.
Have since been inducted, except for Bob Kuchenberg.
Yeah. And then you look.
So looking at 2010, clearly he wasn't going to get in over Emmitt Smith or Jerry Rice. Or John Randall. So the other two there would be one of those two guys you could maybe say, but he's not getting in over Emmitt Smith or Jerry Rice or John Randall. So
right. And then here's the year
you have
that he
Tim
was
Brown
selected.
and Chris Carter on that list too.
Yeah, and Chris Carter's still been snubbed. Like, he's still not. Well, I mean, he is now, but
Chris Carter got in. Yeah,
but I mean, Chris Carter was on the ballot at least 4 years before.
All right, in 2011. He's not getting in over Marshall Faulk or Deion Sanders.
Well, Shannon Sharp did get in on 2000.
Okay, so that's the year. Okay.
Right, and then Deion Sanders, Marshall Faulk, Richard Dent.
I remember that. That was a good Hall of Fame thing that year because I like Marshall Faulk, Deion, and Sharp.
Chris Carter still didn't get in 2012. How about 2013? Did he get in 2013?
Well, I don't know if you saw it there, but on the 2011 ballot, that was pretty interesting too. You had Jerome Bettis, Marshall Faulk, and Curtis Martin, all his first time eligibles that year, and of course they were all running backs. They only took one. They only elected one of them that year.
But they picked the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably say so, but I'm just saying it's like that kind of goes to show you how like they oftentimes won't induct multiple guys from the same position. So like in 2012,
which is stupid, but whatever.
In 2012, Curtis Martin gets in, but Jerome Bettis doesn't. I think Bettis got in 20. No, Bettis didn't even get in 2013. So
let's see. Oh, oops. Gotta get rid of that extra zero. Because you said he was eligible in 2015, right?
Yeah. Who's that?
T.O.
No, 2016, I think, would have been his first year eligible.
Yep, there he is.
Yep.
Yeah, so 1,280 yards receiving.
Why don't I see him? Why am I blind?
You're in 2015 still, Jeremy.
Oh. It didn't take.
So 2016, T.O. hits the ballot, and Marvin Harrison's still on the ballot.
Right, Marvin Harrison should have got in ahead of him.
Yeah, they put Marvin Harrison in that year, which was Marvin Harrison's third year on the ballot.
Right. So you're not going to get in over Brett Favre. You're not going to get in over Marvin Harrison. I don't know who Orlando Pace is.
Oh, yeah. Orlando Pace is maybe the best tackle in NFL history. So,
and Kevin Green was still in there, so you're not getting over Kevin Green. He had been on the ballot for years by then.
Yeah, they finally put Kevin Green in that year. It's like Kevin Green.
Don't click yet, Jeremy. Scroll down more on that one. So, which players did they only elected 4 players that year?
Yep.
Yeah, because that's when they were still doing like coaches, owners, executives, and with the finalists list like that. They've since changed that now. But yeah, so they only actually inducted 4 players that year because they inducted Tony Dungy.
Right.
And Edward DeBarlo Jr.
So
Terrell technically could have been elected that year, to be honest. I mean, his stats, proved that. He could have been drafted. Yeah, I mean, not
So let's
drafted.
look at
Elected that year.
2017. Let's see who's
So, I
But
saw
they probably said that we're putting Marvin Harrison in this year, so we're not putting T.O. in too.
Oh, and then Isaac. Whoa, Isaac Bruce.
Morton
Dude,
Anderson.
This was.
Terrell Davis.
Yeah, see, Isaac Bruce didn't get in. He has. Well,
LaDainian Tomlinson, Kurt Warner.
they put 2 running backs in that year.
See, Kurt Warner, I think that was the first year that he was on the ballot. I didn't see him on last year on the 2016.
He wasn't he was on the 2016 ballot.
he wasn't the 2016 Jeremy.
Oh, was
Yeah.
he?
Yeah,
So he was down here.
the only guys on 2017 who were first time eligibles who were inducted were Jason Taylor and LaDainian Tomlinson.
So it's hard. You can make an argument to say Terrell Owens over Kurt Warner.
No, I mean, they could have added Terrell Owens and kept Kurt Warner, but that's just them. Whatever.
Yeah. But they put Jerry Jones in.
Yeah. So then the ironic thing is if you advance it to 2018, they put T.O. and Randy Moss
in on the same year.
That's the year they put both.
Urlacher too.
Yeah, both linebackers.
This was a great class because you had Brian Dawkins in there too. I was like, yeah.
2 wide receivers and 2 linebackers.
Yep. Well, because the 2 linebackers were both, Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher. They were both first year eligibles. So, yeah, I guess they felt like they both were worthy of it. So
yeah, you can make an argument for T.O. definitely being a first round if they wanted to put another guy in, but however they work it, they didn't. Shannon Sharp's harder because of who was in each ballot. It's very tough. Like those guys that do that voting have a very, very tough decision to make on who's going to be in. Could they put more guys in at a time? Sure, of course they could, but then it wouldn't be as special as it is to make the Hall of Fame. So
this is kind of interesting too. 2019, they put in 3 defensive backs, 2 of whom were first time eligible. Those 2 guys were Champ Bailey and Ed Reed, and they also put Ty Law in that year. That's kind of funny then that they put 3 defensive backs in.
Man, that is interesting, especially those 3. I mean, not that all 3 aren't worthy, but just that's very odd.
And then in the 2020 ballot, which these guys finally got their induction ceremony last week. Well, yeah, but what I was pointing out is that they once again elected 2 defensive backs. One was Steve Atwater, who'd been waiting a long time.
Yes.
And the other was Troy Polamalu, who was in his first year of eligibility. And then on this year's ballot, like this year's induction class, they again had 2 defensive backs. They finally put John Lynch in, and Charles Woodson got in too on his first year of eligibility. They put 3 guys. Hold on. 1, 2, 3. There were 4 guys who were in their first year of eligibility who made the 15 finalist list, and they inducted 3 of them. Those 3 were Calvin Johnson, Peyton Manning, and Charles Woodson. The one guy who didn't get in was Jared Allen, who will probably eventually get.
So here's something with the election committee. So this is current too. There's 49 people. So the committee consists of media from each pro football city. LA and New York get 2 representatives, and then 17 at-large selection committee members, and then 1 representative from the Pro Football Writers of America. And the selection committee, we know they meet before Super Bowl. There is no set number of any class of enshrinees, but the committee's current ground rules do stipulate. So there's really no.
They could put in as many as they want to.
Yeah, as many as they want. But
I always thought it was like they couldn't put in more than 5.
Well,
from the list of 15.
So yeah. So what it is that there was no set number of class enshrinees, but the committee's current ground rules do stipulate that between 4 to 8 new members will be selected each year. Every candidate is carefully scrutinized and must receive at least 80% approval of the selection committee at the annual meeting. 18 finalists include 15 modern era nominees, 1 coach, 1 contributor, and 1 senior nominee. Coach, contributor, and senior finalists are selected by a 9-person committee appointed from the full selection committee.
And it's very rare to see the people who those committees put forth not get selected, because they usually take this position that, like, well, these guys have been more closely scrutinized or had to go through a more rigorous thing to even be put forth.
Mm-hmm.
So they usually don't say no. So like on 2021, Bill Nunn was the contributor nominee. He was selected. Drew Pearson was the senior selected.
Yeah.
That
was the first year for that too, by the way.
Yeah, and Tom Flores was the coach nominee, and he was selected. Yeah, they've changed it around how they have, well, not so much with the senior nominees, but with like non-players. So like contributors, coaches, executives, they've switched around how they did that. And then of course, last year they had that big senior committee where they inducted a bunch of people from like all, because they were doing like the whole like 100-year thing. They expanded like the list of like, coach, contributor, and senior nominees, and they selected quite a few of them, but they still didn't put some in. Like Drew Pearson was on that last year. They didn't get him. He didn't get in last year, but they put him in, this year. Poor Roger Craig is still waiting because he was on that expanded senior committee last year, but he didn't get in. And then like some of the guys who were on that expanded coach thing last year were, well, they selected Bill Cowher and Jimmy Johnson, but you also had Don Coryell, who's been a finalist many times and has never gotten elected, and Tom Flores, who then got in this year. They also had Mike Holmgren, Dan Reeves, and Dick Vermeil. So, and they finally elected George Young, who was the Giants general manager for years, and it was largely credited with rescuing them from their 1970s mediocrity. So, and they put in like Steve Sable, who was the NFL Films guy. So they've changed things. Yeah, they've changed things around, but the main process for like inducting, like the five guys has been fairly steady. And it's always interesting to see who they do and don't put in. And it's like, oh my God, this guy's been waiting for a while. Are they finally going to put him in, or you can see every year.
It was cool when Edgerrin's like, I went from gold teeth to a gold jacket.
Yeah, it was. I like that. So Tony Dungy has a vote.
Oh, interesting.
So he's one of the at-large guys. Tony Dungy, Dan Fouts, James Lofton.
Well, those
Peter
are all
King,
Hall of Famers.
Of course. Yeah, Peter King, Bill Polian as well.
I was going to say, well, like, Dungy, James Lofton, Dan Fouts, they're all in the Hall of Fame, so maybe that's why they get those votes. I don't know.
Maybe they're the representatives picked from the Hall of Fame to levy a vote.
Yeah.
All right, so with all that being said, I wanted to show you guys this because I got this sweet shirt from my family for Father's Day. It is
I don't know about
the Dadalorian.
I don't know about handsome, but
hey, kiss my handsome ass.
What?
So I thought it was really cool. Little play on the
That is cool, actually.
So, my wife was rushing to make it. She messed up the back. She felt really bad, so I went and remade it. So it was, and plus it had a weird typo. It said, what does it say? It says, like a dad, just way mightier. It said just a way mightier. I was like, what? Like that A doesn't belong. That doesn't read grammatically correct. I'm like, who the hell?
If Jeremy noticed, then
I'm like, I didn't write this. Like, if I really would have messed it up. No. So it was a cool gift.
That's cool.
For Father's Day. I also got another shirt. Jill made me, my wife made me 2 shirts. The other one is dad jokes are how I roll, and I is spelled EYE. The I roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
with that.
Not that this, I already told Joe this, and not that this is necessarily something that Pat and Jeremy will, but the other Pat that we're friends with.
Yes.
I actually call him Funko Pop Pat.
Yes.
He has 1,700 Funko Pops, guys.
Oh my God. Yeah, I know him and his wife are like mad collectors of the Funko Pop.
I have like
I remember when he showed us all of his wrestling figures way back in the day.
I have like 300, and I think Joe's maybe in the neighborhood of me. So if you took me, Joe, and my friend Jay, added all of ours together and multiplied it by 2, Pat still has more than us.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's
He's just
sad.
collecting, man.
He said the value of his collection is $45,000.
Well, yeah, and he is, for those of you out there,
Believe that.
he goes to these Comic-Cons and gets the special editions. Like, he doesn't just go to like New York Comic-Con. He has connections at the other
Yes.
Comic-Cons to get the ones that are out in California and like all these different exclusives that nobody can get.
Actually, my wife actually found one that he does not have. He specifically asked me to get this one for him, and she got it in like yesterday, and she's going to get one for him, and there's one for him and one for Joe. So
yeah, it's just crazy, but
Add to that special collection.
yes. So we'll give a shout out to him. They have their own Facebook page, and I gotta find it so I give everybody the.
but he does a podcast that's like the Average Guy podcast, or like it's something.
Mediocre show.
Mediocre show.
Yes, he's on the podcast, The Mediocre Show, as well as him and his wife have a Funko dedicated Facebook page and website. Their Facebook page is Funko Fanatics, Funko News and Reviews.
Yeah.
And then, of course, their webpage is funkofanatics.com. So it all ties in. It's just like if you want to know something going on with Funko and a pop coming out or any kind of thing like that and see some of their collection and shit, like it's on there. Like, so if you're a Funko fanatic like Joe and AJ are, that's where you want to go. That's like the place to go to find out about Funko.
He takes his out of the box. Me and Joe don't take ours out of the boxes.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to.
I am too.
Sad to say. It's sad to say I'm afraid to.
All right. So on that note, we're going to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank everybody for when you get a chance to listen to this on the audio version, wherever you're catching that. We appreciate you listening. And we're going to say good
We have a
night.
special on Saturday, SummerSlam.
Yes. And we'll be here on
Well, it
Saturday
won't be that
live
special, but
to
Wow.
watch SummerSlam and commentate on that thing that, well, we don't know how that's going to be yet. We'll
Yes.
find out.
May or may not be a train wreck.
I'm gonna sit here and eat nachos.
Okay. Well, I'll get the wings. You have the nachos. I'll have the wings. Okay. All right. So on that note, thanks for watching, everybody. We do appreciate it. And we'll say good night, good afternoon, and good morning. And we'll catch you on the next episode.
Toodle.